Hello, you are now entering the infinite void. Hang on tight. We cannot save you now.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Infinite Void. I'm your co-host Matty.
And I'm your co-host Jacob, and today's episode is The Great Filter. So, yeah, in a way, it's kind of like a continuation from the episode that we did on the Fermi paradox. And just like that topic, it's an awesome thought experiment. It's fun to think about, but it also kind of has a real like backbone or meaning to it because it could be devastating for us depending on what implications get decided for the Great Filter. So just before we get started, Matty, what do you know about the Great Filter?
Yes, as you said, it sort of carries on from our episode on the Fermi paradox. So I sort of think of it as sort of maybe one like solution or one sort of outcome of the Fermi paradox to think about. We discussed last time some sort of other sort of solutions to that, but this is probably the big one, and I imagine we'll probably get quite existential again when we get to the end of the episode.
Yes, for sure. So the Fermi paradox, for everybody that listened to that episode, that was essentially like a more in-depth question for where is everybody? And for this episode, just maybe we're asking the wrong questions. And we should be asking questions like, what happened to everyone? Are we the first to the party? Are we the last to the party? Because essentially, why can't we see anybody out there? And there could be implications for this. There is some cool steps, but before we get into that, I'm just going to give you guys a quick brief intro into what it is, because I think it's good if we all get on the same starting foot. But basically, the Great Filter is whatever prevents non-living matter from undergoing abiogenesis in time to expanding, lasting, intelligent life as measured by the Kardashev scale across the cosmos. I don't know if I'm saying that word right, but abiogenesis is basically the original evolution of life or living organisms from inorganic or inanimate substances into living conscious things. And the Kardashev scale is something we're going to talk about in a future episode too. And that essentially is like grouping civilizations based off their technological capability, energy capability, and society capability in like type 1, type 2, type 3. But yeah, so off the bat, the Great Filter was first proposed in an online paper titled The Great Filter, Are We Almost Past It? And it was written by an economist called Robin Hanson in 1996. And basically, the paper had a famous quote from it, and it was basically that humanity seems to have a bright future, i.e. a non-trivial chance of expanding to fill the universe with lasting life. But the fact that space near us seems dead now tells us that any given piece of dead matter faces an astronomical low chance of begating such a future. There thus exists a great filter between death and expanding lasting life. And humanity faces the ominous question, how far along of this filter are we? And I think that's quite a good way to start it because it's an interesting thought experiment.
Yeah, so that definition you gave had quite a lot of sort of big words in it, I guess, but it's this sort of idea of there being something that stands in the way of all sort of very basic life sort of developing until, you said, the Kardashev scale, this sort of intelligent sort of multi-galactic sort of civilization. Like there's something that we think maybe stands in the way of that, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's interesting because like we haven't found any evidence for intelligent life, and the process could go all the way back to the beginning with like the star that happens to have that system with the planet it's orbiting it and what resources are in that solar system and all these kind of questions. But essentially, Robin Hanson made this kind of like 9-step evolutionary path for what his argument was for the Great Filter. And obviously this is unfinished, or it could be finished, we don't know, because the only example that we've got for this is us so far. But essentially it is the right star system, reproductive molecules, simple single cell life, complex single cell life, sexual reproduction, multi-cell life, tool-using animals with intelligence, and then where we currently are, and then finally colonization explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And any one of these things he kind of proposes could be a filter, and we could have potentially made it the furthest, and the last one could be colonization explosion, but we don't know what that filter could be. Or there could be something quite daunting ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at this list, it's quite interesting because it really does make you think, because it's not just about like when you kind of think of intelligent life, or you talk about the idea of civilizations and stuff happening on other planets, you don't think how like many a million, well, people might, but like the millions and millions and millions of years of like evolution from single cell all the way up to like what we are. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I think we probably just sort of take it a bit for granted that this is just what the universe does. You know, you have molecules, and then you develop single cells, and then you develop sort of complex sort of organisms, and then they develop and become sort of more intelligent. We just sort of think that is what happens, but as we sort of discussed in the Fermi paradox episode, that, as far as we could tell, doesn't seem to be the case. It's the idea that each one of these sorts of steps could be this great filter that stops life getting any further, and sort of where we are on it, I'm sure we'll probably come back to, sort of has some potentially good or potentially bad consequences for us.
Well, this is it. We're so far, we're like putting ourselves at step 8 out of the whole 9.
Yeah.
And whilst that's quite a good thing for us, because that means everything else is in our past and we've managed to overcome that.
Mm-hmm.
But it could also mean a few other things as well. Like the very idea for like other civilizations to kind of get to the level that humanity on seems from this list quite improbable. But given the timescales and, like we discussed in the Fermi paradox episode, the vast amount of planets and star systems and galaxies, like it's just unusual that we haven't got anything to like compare it against.
Yeah, and sort of one thing that, because I was sort of looking at this list for the first time today when we sort of discussed about what we were going to talk about. The latter half of the list does seem quite lacking, doesn't it? You know, we have these sort of like 7 sort of very well-defined steps of, you know, single-celled life, and then complex sort of single-celled life. He even breaks that down into 2 steps.
Exactly.
But then you have us 8, and then 9 is just galactic empire.
Yeah. There's no like multi-planetary or anything kind of thing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's this idea again that this is not an exact science. This is a thought experiment, and it's something to think about rather than try and explicitly calculate. So, yeah, I personally, looking at this list, I think there could be many more stages beyond, well, between 8 and 9 that haven't. Yeah, we'll probably discuss later, won't we? What some of those are.
Yeah. I was actually watching something a couple of days ago. I can't remember who it was, but it was something on YouTube. And I hadn't really put much thought into it, but I was like, oh my God, you're totally correct. Like they were talking about how like we view our species, and they were talking about once we get to Mars or another planet, you kind of double your chances of survival.
Mm-hmm.
And so on. But this person was basically saying like, if we start talking in like billions of years in terms, then realistically for humanity to like proper survive for for the foreseeable future anyway, you have to kind of get multi-star system, because like stars could like change and stuff. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's I think we're probably some way off that. Baby steps at first, but
yeah, totally. Especially with the distances like we've discussed and stuff. It's
yeah. I think I did say in the last one, but Proxima Centauri system is about 4 light years away, so that's our nearest star, and that one doesn't seem particularly interesting. That seems relatively average. So, that would be, I guess, one of our first steps out into the sort of wider Milky Way if we were to go anywhere. But 4 light years is sort of so far ahead of our current technologies. It's pretty well, it won't be our lifetimes, that's for certain.
Yeah, no, totally. Unless something serious changes, and I don't really think that that's going to happen anytime soon.
No, but
seems pretty solid with where we're at.
Yeah. Things are developing quickly, but this is magnitudes times greater. Moving from go from the moon to Mars. This is a huge step that we're not going to see that.
Yeah, totally. And this is kind of where the great filter, we start moving more into now, like the idea of, well, just because we've achieved the first 8 steps and exist doesn't mean that it's very possible elsewhere. And actually, it could be super improbable, and we are the exception.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as we've discussed a minute ago, the other way it goes is that actually maybe everybody gets to a certain level and then the great filter happens to them because it's the said thing that civilization can't overcome to spread out, and there's nothing left. And some of the cool ideas that I've seen online, because I've been doing some deep diving the last couple of days on like the internet. I was having a look on Reddit. I wanted to see what people were talking about on Twitter about this as well, because I'm just interested in that kind of stuff. But essentially, like, I thought they were quite like human viewed ideas, but they're cool. And the 3 kind of things it came down to were, if it was like something that humans were going to cause, so like we create the great filter ourselves, it would be like war, so intelligent life destroys itself, like energy, where we exhaust all of our resources, or like climate change destroys us, and then intelligence, where actually we create technology that like exceeds us, and then you get like artificial intelligence or the tech singularity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite a fun thing to think about too, because I was reading a book and they were talking about like, if you were really kind of going to sit down and start thinking about the idea of like interstellar travel, it would make more sense for it to be like robotic, was what I saw, because like the distances are like too far for living things.
Yeah, it's far more sort of, you could imagine within a relatively near future us sending a probe to another sort of star,
and
then sort of it setting up some sort of operation base and sending back data and sort of things. That could happen within hundreds of years, say. That's quite easy to imagine. Trying to make the leap that we're sending humans sort of light year distances is sort of another whole step, isn't it?
Yeah. But no, I think those 3 things are quite solid things, because the great filter, like as an idea, could actually be the intelligent life itself, whether or not it's able to overcome its own problems. And
the second one, did that include things like natural disasters like asteroids, and was that on the list at all?
No, but then totally.
I'd imagine, just statistically, most planets, Earth has already had one mass extinction from an asteroid. That's another thing, whether it's asteroids, sort of black hole events, solar events like a big solar burst or something. That's so I guess a 4th one on that list as well.
Yeah, because like solar storms and stuff, or like the blowout ones, they can like sterilize like planets, can't they? If it's yeah, that's scary. You're just totally in the wrong place at the wrong time in space for that to happen to you.
Also, it gets progressively worse the more developed you are. 150. I think there was one in early 1900s, and it sort of wiped out like the east side of America's like telegram system or something like that. It was it was a big deal, but you'd think back 150 years ago, a massive solar flare would probably cause a bit of sort of scientific damage, and that'll be about it. Nowadays, if there was a massive solar flare, there would be sort of cars driving off the road and people sat with no internet and sort of not being able to do anything for months potentially. So, that issue in particular is sort of another aspect of, as you become more reliant on technology, there is this potential for the technology to go wrong more. So.
Yeah. And it's such like a lottery as well, like when you think about it, because you're just like this little rock orbiting this giant thing that at any moment could just blast out
Yeah.
an unfathomable amount of energy in your direction, and you just happen to move straight into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
it's just gone. But yeah, no, totally. There's a fourth one there. So like already it's like I think the whole like war idea.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that it's a great filter, but it could be. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think intelligent life totally is capable of destroying itself, but I don't know if they'd do it through war, unless we're gonna like talk like nuclear bombs and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, potentially
Yeah.
the 60s, 70s with the Cold War, maybe that was the great filter that we've sort of just got through. So,
Yeah.
I said like steps 8 and 9 on this list seem a bit short, maybe that's an 8.1 sort of thing. So,
yeah, totally. Because like with the energy one, when we're talking about like exhausting our resources and like climate change and stuff, that also kind of leads into what we were talking about in the space debris. Like a civilization could just be chucking so much stuff up in orbit, they like completely kind of like prison themselves to their planet.
Yep. Yeah.
And then obviously you've got like the final one with just like technology exceeding us and
yeah. I'm pretty certain we've still got AI down as a topic in itself, so we're maybe try and keep that one a bit sort of separate. But that one in particular to me is terrifying. It's nothing short of terrifying.
Well, it's like we were talking about in the Fermi paradox, like even just from like a technology standpoint with like VR, like we always ask why we don't see anybody and why we don't see anybody like colonizing the universe. But I don't like the word colonizing, but just that idea, like maybe they've all just got really, really good VR systems and they don't need to travel anywhere.
Yeah. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and obviously a lot of these things don't even have answers. They're just things to think about.
Yeah. Just a good old thought experiment. But yeah, it's interesting because it's funny because you see like Elon was tweeting about this, wasn't he? Not that long ago. And it's interesting to see like the different public ideas for like what people think that the great filter might be, kind of thing. But it gave me a good idea, and what I thought I'd do for today's episode was I'd put a little tweet out on the account and see what people thought the great filter would be, and we could see if there's any like good examples, and we could talk maybe about a few of them, see if anybody's got some good suggestions. So straight off the bat, I rate the comedy of this. Someone's just put 2020. I think that's quite a fun one. Somebody else put something to strain the great coffee with, but they're the two funny ones. I won't delve into any more of those, but I thought they were very, very good. And then other ones, really, everybody's kind of just talking about like the distances, like the idea of like the rare earth theory, the idea of like the place that we are is quite like young. The area that we're in is quite young. Someone talked about the idea of us just destroying ourselves, and then quite a lot of people were putting climate change.
Yeah.
Which I think in itself, I know it's part of the energy one, but like, yeah, totally in itself, that could be it. Because your like intelligence could exceed you, and then you're like building all these things for civilization, and then you're destroying your surroundings quicker than you're aware of it, and then it's just undoable.
Yeah, the climate change one is, I think it's often misunderstood that, there's a whole debate, well, it's not a debate, it's been proven about, is it man-made, is it an issue, is it sort of thing?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people seem to have this sort of thought that it's reversible as well.
Yeah.
Which it may be, but I once, sort of back in first year, we did a lecture on this at university, and throughout history, Earth seems to have cold periods and warm periods, and you can think of that as like it's called a what's it called? double equilibrium. You sort of have these two sort of stable states that the Earth likes to sit in, and you can imagine those. Think of it like two valleys with like a mountain between them.
Yeah.
So it flips between the two. So to get over the valley, there's some sort of major event. So, an asteroid hits, large volcanic activity, the sort of plants evolving. Those are sort of massive events that sort of push us over the lump between the two. So when plants evolved, they obviously took a lot of carbon dioxide out of the system, and they sort of forced us into a sort of ice age period. So this sort of idea of like having a dual equilibrium system. The problem we have at the moment is that we are in the point where we are going outside of that system, and you don't know what is on the other side. There could be another really, really high mountain, and we sort of keep pushing and pushing. We eventually sort it, and we just roll back down the mountain into our sort of comfortable trough.
Yeah.
Or there could just be another one of these sort of humps. We go over it, and on the other side is a huge cavern that we just sort of runaway climate change into.
Yeah.
This is the problem: is that we are pushing it to an unknown position, and once you're in the unknown position, we just don't have the data to be able to say what will happen.
Yeah.
So this idea of runaway climate change is potentially the great filter. Is that we're not we sort of talk about 1.5 degree change, 2 degree change.
Yeah,
it's possible we get to 2 degree change, it goes over this lump, and then within decades we go 3 degrees, 5 degrees, 10 degrees, and we just push it sort of beyond anything that we can deal with. So it's the climate change. Before you even sort of said about the poll, I knew that was going to be probably one of the ones that everyone talks about. It's such a obvious sort of thing to see, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And it's like you said, that this list seems so unfinished. Like just in this like 20-minute conversation that we've had so far, we've got like not hundreds, but we've got a good list of things that it could like possibly be.
Well, your mind can sort of just run away with this idea, and there's so many things that it could potentially be in the future, which would not be good for Earth. This idea of the great filter is, if it is ahead of us, there will be something at some point that just finishes us off, or at least stops us expanding any further. So
or if it's behind us, we're in the clear and we did it.
If it's behind us, we are rulers of the universe. We are we are the greatest. But what would be your personal take? Do you think we've got past it? If you're going to put some money on the table, do you think it's ahead of us or behind us?
I honestly don't know, because I feel like that kind of question, either we need a better understanding of like evidence for life anywhere else, even if it's just like microbial, or like a better mapping and like understanding of what exactly is out there. Because I just don't know. I'd like to believe that we've definitely passed it, but then that kind of means I'm leaning more on the idea that it's quite easy to pass it and there's going to be a lot of it out there. But I don't know. The universe seems too big for it to just be only us. This kind of like leads back into like the whole like Fermi paradox thing as well. Like it seems too big, and there's too many opportunities for us just to make it through the great filter.
So if we found intelligent life somewhere else, would that make you think that maybe we have got through it and there are other species that are existing that have also got through it with us? Or do you think it would be the opposite? There's lots of species and the ones we see haven't got through it.
Oh, see, I don't know, because can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Because like, I don't know, because for me, it would be, once we find like an intelligent civilization that's kind of on par with us, you kind of have 2 samples to like go from, and it would kind of imply that either it's not that hard because the only 2 examples we know have both made it through it, or it would mean like the possibility for like more out there. So I don't know, because it's like you said, we could like find life and be like, oh, okay, so maybe everybody's made it through it, and then we could find out that actually none of us have made it through it yet.
Yeah, yeah. It's my initial sort of reaction would be, I think, the opposite of what you just did. Was if we found another species that was, say, like us, that basically says that all the steps that we've done before were twice as easy as we thought they were,
Okay.
because twice as many species have done it, which to me would make me think that it's yet to come.
Okay.
But that's just my sort of speculation on it. Yeah.
So what happens if we find something that's like better than us? What happens then?
Yeah. There is no answer to this. You could just sort of speculate.
Yeah.
The reality is that if it's yet to come, we won't know until we hit it. That's but
and would we just pass it and then
Mhm.
think that we still haven't passed it?
Yeah, but that's potentially what we've already done. So
Yeah.
But this is another thing: is it obviously it depends where it is. Is it possible that like our species will never encounter a great filter? There is potential that there is more than one great filter.
Yeah.
Will we never encounter one because our sort of ancestral species already went through it? Was the asteroid that wiped out most of the dinosaurs, was that sort of the last great filter? So
yeah,
humans would never encounter it because humans didn't exist then. We just happen to have been spawned in a time when we were post great filter, which is another possibility. So
yeah, no, totally. That's a really good point, because no, I agree with you, and as well, it could apply to different species as well. Like, for instance, even if you like look at fish and stuff, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all the different species on planet Earth, everybody might just have their own filter of like what they can actually like achieve as well, and that's the filter.
Yeah.
Like, you're just limited to your biology.
Yeah,
and there's nothing you can do about it apart from wait.
Yeah, it seems unlikely that fish are going to suddenly start.
Yeah, can you imagine
spreading around the galaxy?
Yeah. Well, it's Rick and Morty. I don't know if you watch Rick and Morty. Have you ever watched Rick and Morty?
I don't know. No.
Cool. So I like Rick and Morty. There was a episode, I think in the most recent season, where they like joked around with the idea that like they basically found this planet that was inhabited by a civilization of snakes.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick implied that the Great Filter was like war and like race, because these two snakes had achieved, it sounds ridiculous, they'd achieved like space capabilities, these two nations of snakes, but they couldn't explore the solar system because they were at war with each other, and they kept like taking each other's things out instead of like coming together. And like it was such a funny episode, because he's sitting there and he's like talking about the Great Filter. He's like, what a dumb race. Can you imagine that? Like, they all came from the same planet, but they can't even like get along to like do anything cool. And it was like, yeah, he's kind of talking about humanity there as well.
Yeah, that rings true, doesn't it?
But it's so funny seeing it in the context of snakes with like two different nations' spacesuits and stuff on. It was honestly, I was watching it and I was like, that's quite funny.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely interesting, because it can go in so many directions. And it's like you said in the Fermi paradox episode, when you were saying how as we get more advanced, you can kind of go through this list and tick it off. And you can kind of do the same with this one. Like, because we've discovered these processes, we like now know they exist, so we can like look for it elsewhere. And we get like signs of it, because didn't like even just this one, like the whole idea of tool using animals. I swear I've seen something about monkeys moving into an age of something in South America.
I don't quote me on this, but I thought scientists had seen this group of monkeys. I can't remember if it's South America. I thought it might have been Asia, the ones that I saw, but they had seen them develop tool usage over the last few decades.
Yeah.
Now that's potentially a sort of human sort of bias on this experiment. The humans have found these monkeys, and then the monkeys have seen what we do and have copied, or have got access to stuff that we've left behind, or something like this. So there's potentially this sort of biasing in sort of our experimental results in this way. But yeah, I'm sure they've seen groups of monkeys show tool usage that they didn't used to show. So
it's funny. Can you imagine if like the monkeys just move into like the Stone Age now? That's where they're at.
Wow, it's not inconceivable, really.
No, but like even like that, like you can kind of like go through this list and like find examples and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting. It definitely looks unfinished.
Yeah. To me, there's multiple stages between that 8 and 9. On a variety of things. So on an energy sort of thing. So 8 was where we are now, which is sort of a sort of well-developed single planetary species, and then 9 being sort of multi-galactic empire sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you have the energy thing. Obviously we need to be able to take most energy from our sun, and then be able to sort of harness energy from other suns, other stars within the galaxy. You have the sort of capability to be able to actually explore the sort of universe, so being able to go from your nearest sort of moon to be able to go to other planets and then to other stars sort of thing.
Yeah.
You have the climate thing, so being able to produce food and sort of run a society in a sustainable way on one planet and then multiple planets. These are sort of in like sort of sub bullet points within that 8 to 9 transition that are obviously going to have to be addressed, and are potential things there we fall down and sort of fall off the scale at like an 8.4 or something. But
yeah. That's something I've always never been able to get my head around. When we like, I know this is going to be in like hundreds, if not thousands of years, but like if we do ever make it to that point when we start colonizing the galaxy and star hopping and stuff, hypothetically, is there any way yet that anybody's like talked about how data's gonna, like data and information is just gonna traverse, because like from planet to planet and stuff, because those distances are so hard, and like as a civilization, how do you keep everything together when everything's so incredibly far away from each other?
Well, the sort of take that I would have, and I've seen sort of people talk about it in the past, is that the most likely thing is that, I think we like to think that, it's this sort of human-centric approach again, that we'd send, let's say we go to Proxima Centauri, we send sort of a group of people over there and they do their thing, whatever, that they'd be sort of like an outpost for our civilization and our species, in the same way that, people discovered the Americas and stuff. We like to think of it in that way. But the reality is that they would probably go and they wouldn't be what we'd think of Earth humans anymore. They would be not obviously immediately their own species, but they would be their own civilization. There's potential, they maybe send messages on an infrequent basis or something, but with those sorts of distances, the more likely outcome is that they go knowing that they are setting up a new civilization, not a continuation of Earth.
Does that mean... Go on.
So yeah, that's a sort of, obviously the communication distances, but the reality is that on the distance of light years, we are going to take hundreds or thousands of years to travel them. If you travel at 1% speed of light, which we are nowhere near, or even 10% speed of light, that's a 40-year journey to get to our nearest star. That's, nearly 2 generations of humans on a spaceship. By the time they get there, these people that are arriving are not going to be Earthlings.
Well, this was the next thing I was gonna like ask was like, surely at that point, wouldn't there'd be like so many like breakaway versions of humans just on all these different planets that over time those planets would like change them, wouldn't it? Surely, like depending on gravity and everything. Because I swear I've seen something where they talk about like the humans of Mars after like 4 or 5 generations, like little changes in like skin color and.
Well, we see on the International Space Station that in microgravity, humans lose like so much percentage of their bone mass and stuff and muscle mass.
Yeah.
You know, people going to different planets and living there, or different star systems and living there, would within a few generations not be what we think of as Earthlings.
Yeah.
And this is it's sort of something that people don't sort of address when they think about, there's this idea that, humans will move to other planets or other star systems and the human race will sort of be insured against sort of things on Earth, and we will be the species that has sort of gone out and taken over the galaxy or whatever.
Yeah.
But the reality is that we wouldn't, at that point, I don't think we would be the same species. We wouldn't be the same civilization doing that. There's no, even if by some miracle we managed to travel at the speed of light, to travel the 5,000 years across the Milky Way is, how many is that? It's 200 generations of humans.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That's not humankind, is it? That is like saying that we today are the like remnants or some continuation of the Egyptian Empire. That's not isn't, is it?
Yeah.
So
yeah, because it's so massive, and I've like that's just always been something I've really thought about, was just like the idea that, okay, let's say we do it, because like as a kid I always used to watch like Star Trek, Star Wars. When I got a little bit older, I was like into Marvel and like all the different like planets and everything. And I used to sit there and actually think about it, just like the idea of how big everything is. And even if we did it, like how would everybody stay in touch with each other? It's not really like a galactic order.
No.
Like to that kind of precision in any way, kind of shape or form. Because like.
This is with like Star Trek and Star Wars, they have these sort of devices and stuff that, fundamentally it's a plot device to allow different galaxies to be able to be in one continuous thing. The reality of our universe is that just isn't going to happen, and it does sort of raise a lot of questions. We talk about the great filter of creating, getting through it and creating this step 9 sort of multi-galactic sort of civilization, but would we even be a civilization? I probably don't think so. I think we'd just be, in the same way that on Earth, animals got sort of trapped on Madagascar or got trapped in Australia when the continent split up, and they are now, fundamentally different species. Well,
if you want to get really cynical, maybe the Great Filter doesn't even exist, and we are just the improbable thing that happened. We existed, we created it. And it's not even a thing, because life isn't supposed to exist in the first place to even sit here and talk about what's going to destroy
it. I was listening to a podcast. It was an old episode it's called Hello Internet. I really enjoy it. It's by Brady Harron, that does Numberphile and 60 Symbols and CGP Grey. I'm sort of catching up on old episodes. And CGP Grey 21 is sort of a bit of a, he wouldn't say it himself, but a worrier. He likes to sort of overthink things and stuff like that. And he was talking about the night sky, and it sort of relates to this sort of Fermi paradox that we discussed and the Great Filter. Cool. And I think it's fair to say that most people, when they look at the night sky, there's this sort of sense of awe and wonder, like, oh, like, look, imagine what could be out there, sort of thing, like all these stars and stuff. And he said, actually, no, if you think about it, we look up, this idea of like the search for terrestrial life, we found nothing. What we are effectively doing is, imagine walking into a city and it is completely deserted. There is not one light on, and you're stood there with your like flashlight, the first thing you would do is turn off your flashlight and hide somewhere.
Yeah.
And that is basically what we're doing. You look at the night sky, there is nothing,
Yeah.
and we are the one light that we know of that is just blaring out into the universe
And making a racket. It'd be like walking around as well shouting, "Hello, is anybody there?"
Yeah, this is like horror movie 101, isn't it? And it just got me thinking, like, that is a terrifying thought, that this idea of great filters perhaps maybe something more sinister, and there is something something another sort of civilization or something just fundamental about the universe that does not want or does not support life living, and we are there, like, waving our arms around, being the one thing in the universe saying, like, hey, look at me. Like,
Can you imagine there's just like a universal like apex predator, and we're like, hey, where is everyone? And everyone else has like turned their stuff off, and they're like, stop it, be quiet, shush.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we discussed this last time on episode 2 about the idea of there being some sort of alien species that is so like far beyond us that they would just kill us. Like,
they wouldn't even consider us.
Yeah, but this sort of thought about us, like just looking in the night sky and being the one light shining, like, that really changed my perspective on stuff.
Yeah, it's a scary thought for sure. Isn't Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, doesn't that like literally start with Earth being just in the way of just a galactic motorway that they want to build?
Yeah, exactly. So the reality is if there was some like civilization that was so far beyond us that we couldn't comprehend it, we would be the equivalents of like worms in a building site, when we're constructing roads on Earth.
What made me laugh about that was like the whole idea when the humans are like, we didn't know what's going on, kind of thing. And it's like, we sent you like an invite in our version of technology. If you're not like capable enough to have even received it or understand it, that's on you. You've missed the day, kind of thing. And it was like, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like maybe there are signals like telling us to be quiet and stuff, but we're just not even on that level to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But this is the like, back to the great filter. It's just, there's so many ways in which we could not exist anymore.
We seem to be making more and more, either the more we learn or the more we discover with like breakthroughs and stuff that we have. We're getting more power to do it ourselves, and we're discovering that there are a lot more things out there that can also do it to us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but sort of hand in hand in that is, we're sort of looking at hopefully ways to sort of combat this. It's potential that we are coming up to a great filter, and we are maybe just about going to skate through it by sort of innovating and stuff. Whether the great filter could be an asteroid or something, and we are now at the stages where we're beginning to sort of be able to develop asteroid sort of redirect capabilities. Maybe global warming, and fingers crossed, with just developing technologies that could potentially solve that. Perhaps it's war, and we've maybe just got through it, and we're now developing sort of political systems that are more resilient to war. So
can you imagine if it was something like that? Just something as simple as something that comes with intelligent life is just like the idea of opinion and what they think is right, and like that could be the great filter. Like intelligent beings have to get over the idea of like right and wrong and their opinion and somebody else's opinion, like without saying like everybody has like one agreement. Do you know what I mean? Like we have to like overcome our differences.
Yeah. Well, the universe is a complicated place, and we could speculate all day about what the great filter is and what it isn't,
and that's what makes it funny, because like it definitely wasn't made for us. It's inconceivable part of it.
Yeah.
But no, I think that pretty much covers up the great filter. If we should want to move into some news for this week.
Okay. So, who wants to go first on this?
You can go first if you like.
So, I'll start with a bit of news. So we're recording this on Monday the 28th, for anyone sort of interested in this. Today, the UK launched, well, the UK didn't launch, 2 UK satellites were launched from Russia. And these are nano satellites. They're about the size of shoeboxes. And they've been developed by this company called Spire Global UK. And they are going to be tracking maritime trade. So sort of tracking ships from space. And I think the idea is that you could track them and sort of more accurately predict when they're going to be coming into port and stuff, so they can sort of make shipping more efficient and stuff. But as we were discussing last week, sort of UK space capability and what we're up to, I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, that's
as an
cool.
interesting piece. So yeah, this company got, I think, £10 million worth of UK Space Agency funding to develop these satellites. So it all looks good on that sort of front, I think.
That's cool. So I'll try and keep it space themed. I've got so it's scheduled for launch tomorrow, but I've got another launch. Basically, NASA are launching a new space toilet.
Ooh.
This week, which is exciting. It's supposed to be going up tomorrow in a scheduled launch, and basically all the launches is some fresh supplies for the International Space Station. This brand new toilet, which I'm going to get into, and also skincare for Estee Lauder.
Oh, yes.
Now, if anybody follows me on Twitter, you'll see I was talking about this today. It blew my mind how much Estee Lauder were paying to have a photo shoot on the International Space Station. I don't know the total number, but it was like $17,000 an hour.
Mm-hmm. I think it was something about $120,000 in total or something.
Which is crazy. It's cool. I respect it. Any company that wants to do like marketing with stuff in space, I guess, is good. But at the same time, is it good? Because like the damage to, I don't know, how much like fuel and does everything that use to get some stuff up in space?
Yeah, there is this sort of, I guess, this environmental impact of it, but from an economics point of view, I think any sort of investment in space is good. You know, that $17,000 for essentially holding up some skincare routine stuff. If that gets sort of reinvested in NASA's budget, then I think that's a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah, man. I think it's good as well for like inspiring like young female astronauts as well. Like it's just cool. It's a cool collab. I wouldn't have thought would ever have happened, but we live in 2020 and anything can happen, I guess. But this toilet seems pretty interesting. So back on to the crazy toilet. But basically it's 100, that would have been a lot. It's 23 million it costs to create this space toilet.
Of skincare adverts.
Yeah. And it is his little bit of math for you guys, 65% smaller than the current NASA space toilet. Now I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen a NASA space toilet before, so I couldn't tell you if that is amazing, but that's what the NASA officials are saying. It's 65% smaller and 40% lighter than current space toilets.
When you say smaller, are you talking like the whole system, or are you talking like the bit you actually go into? Because that's a lot of space to lose.
I'm not sure. Space.com have been pretty basic on what they're saying. It literally says this toilet is 65% smaller and 40% lighter than the current toilet on the space station.
Wow.
But it's designed and optimized to be used for female crew, because apparently the current toilet on the space station was designed for men.
Yeah, I have seen the current system, and it doesn't look great, I'll be honest.
So that's cool. But I think I saw something about this anyway, because weren't they developing it for the moon missions as well?
I have not seen anything about space toilets, I'll be honest.
I think they were developing it for the moon missions as well, because I know they've got female astronauts. Not confirmed, but they're like talking about who's going to be going, aren't they? Yeah. I don't know, the class of whatever they are.
well, presumably for Mars as well, this will be a big issue on a 6-month journey to Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with that? Are they just going to like collect it and then when they get there use it as like fertilizer, or are we just going to like eject it into space?
I'd imagine they'd have to keep. You can't transport that much water, so they'd have to get the water out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, these are like not the boring parts, but these are the parts that people don't think about when we think about like going to Mars and stuff with the distances.
I'm sure someone's getting paid a lot of money to think about this.
Yeah. Well, just like this new toilet for these things. That's pretty cool. But yeah, so that is happening. That'll have happened by the time this episode comes out, but that's cool.
So yeah, expect to see that all over the front page of the news.
Yeah. when if you see this new toilet, don't forget to like tag our podcast in it and be like, yes, they told us about the toilet.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of cutting edge space news that you get from this podcast.
We'll take any sort of advertisement we can get, whether it's on Earth or not.
If we had 125,000 spare, we'd do a cool photo shoot on the International Space Station.
I'm sure we could. We have to find someone that's on the International Space Station at the moment, get them on Twitter and try to get them to listen to the podcast in space.
Yeah. Get them to do something cool. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I've also got another space launch. So, well, not launch, it's more of an announcement, but basically SpaceX wins launch contract for NASA for space science mission. And basically what Space News are basically saying for this is that they have announced that NASA have awarded SpaceX another contract to launch its Interstellar Mapping and Acceleration Probe spacecraft for 2024. And I thought that had the coolest name ever.
That's a particularly cool one. Yeah, that when you see space missions, that's the sort of name you want, isn't it?
Yeah. And they said that the mission's going to cost around 109 million. And it's going to operate 1.5 kilometers from Earth.
So what is this doing exactly?
I'm not actually sure. It says, it's going to study the boundary of the sun's heliosphere.
Okay.
But it's going to be studying it either in it or outside of it. And it's going to be measuring the generation of cosmic rays.
Okay.
But that's cool.
Yeah. Well, yes. Again, this sort of commercialization of space, isn't it? You know, we're seeing sort of SpaceX in particular now starting to be not just this sort of quirky thing that does its own thing. It's starting now to be, you know, this sort of almost off the shelf. Yeah, we'd like to send this into space. What can you do? Oh yeah, here's a price, sort of thing. So
yeah. It's cool because there's like a few companies and they're like focusing on different places as well. Like you've got like NASA that's like really got its eyes on the moon and building like the orbiting observatory for the moon as well. Because don't they basically want to put like another kind of like space station but on the moon?
Yeah,
with a lab in it and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the plan.
So that's cool. So you like got NASA aiming for the moon, then you got like SpaceX with their just eyes on Mars. Elon's gonna make sure it happens, even if he can't go. He wants to see it in his lifetime. And then you've got all the cool new announcements with like Rocket Lab and going to Venus.
Yeah. There's lots happening at the moment in terms of where we're going and what's on the horizon for space travel, I guess.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun time if you're interested in space exploration, for sure. Especially in this decade, we'll definitely, well, hopefully, if nothing goes wrong, we'll see humans back on the moon.
I cannot wait for this.
Yeah, especially with like the new camera technology and stuff as well now. Because have you seen that awesome video where that guy gets that algorithm that he's wrote to like reprocess the footage?
Yes, I have seen the
Yeah, like the 4K version of it. It's awesome.
yeah.
It's
But
so
no.
cool.
Is it 2024? They're targeting moon, I think. Or is
Yeah.
that to have people on the moon, or to, like the first mission that will like orbit it or something?
No, I think that's the first one that they're planning on having people on it. When's Mars? Is that this decade or is that the beginning of 2030s?
I thought it was this decade. I thought I had in my head 2028, but
Yeah,
that
that's what
could
I
be.
was thinking. But I'm not sure if they're like actually going to be there in 2028 or like if they're just going there for like.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Who knows? I think it is 2028. But I'm excited for that. It's a pretty awesome decade, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Could be
Yeah.
two planets in our lifetime. Well,
Could
a
be.
planet and a moon.
2 celestial bodies. So.
Yeah, it's better than one. Have you got anything else for the news this week?
Yes, I had 2 more bits. One was on
Sweet.
space. Was this is from Science News .org. So this is further evidence for sort of liquid water on Mars. So quite a while back, this sort of orbiting probe of Mars sort of said they have found this lake of water that sits sort of under the icy South Pole. So it's still a bit contentious. It's about what that is. Essentially, they're using radar to sort of try and see through the ice and
Cool.
sort of see liquid water. Well, now a new study, this has come out today as well, also in Nature Astronomy, has claimed that they found these sorts of surrounding pools of water around the main reservoir. So, sort of under the ice, there's this not just one sort of ocean of or sea of water. There's this sort of system of water, sort of trapped, presumably in craters and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
So, there's sort of 2 interesting things about this. Firstly, is like we were talking about with Venus, this idea of habitable places for other life. Potentially, they say this sort of pool would be quite salty and it would be pretty much at freezing. But the potential for these sort of extremophile life forms to be sort of existing there, and also in terms of sort of human space exploration, this sort of South Pole, I think, is probably the number one place that humans will sort of try to end up going and be able to use this water, whether it is ice or is liquid, sort of to kickstart sort of habitation of Mars. So, yeah, it's always good to see sort of extra research going into this sort of area for those 2 reasons, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. Don't like they want to terraform Mars? Isn't that the whole idea?
Well,
Don't want to like melt the ice caps or something eventually.
yeah, this is actually a topic I want to talk about. Is like our impact and sort of contamination on other planets. But yeah, the idea is that this water, it's not obviously as much as Earth, but there's a significant amount that would allow us to at least form areas of Mars that were habitable by sort of utilizing this water. So
Yeah,
yeah, it looks interesting, I think.
it is a cool one for sure.
And then the final bit that I had was just a bit of fun, really. Have you seen this new Amazon? What's their company called? Is it Nest? Their sort of doorbell, Ring. Sorry, Nest is the Google one. Ring.
I have, yes.
This Ring drone thing.
I've seen a photo of it, but I wasn't sure if it was real. But this is amazing.
It's real. So you got to imagine. So I'm looking at a picture of it now. There's this little box, and then off the top of it comes this like quadcopter thing. So it looks about the size of, a lunchbox or so, and then sort of underneath it is a camera. And the idea is that someone would break into your house, and this drone would fly around your house, like just taking pictures and video and stuff, and streaming it to your phone, so you can see what's going on in your house. And then I've seen a video of it, and I was thinking, what on earth are they thinking? Like,
Yeah.
I'm a relatively techie guy, I'd like a funky doorbell and sort of home security stuff like that. But why would anyone want a drone flying around their house with a camera on it when
Yeah.
it thinks someone broke it in? It's such a bizarre
So
announcement.
so wait, is the drone indoor or outdoor? Indoor.
Indoor.
Okay,
It,
so when like there's like something happening, it'll come out of its little box and
yeah,
fly around the inside of your house. Oh, because
and
that's insane. I thought it was like maybe something that was outside, and then if there was like an intruder alert or something, it would like go up like 20 feet and just like bird's eye view.
no. So it's saying at the moment, I don't know if there's plans to sort of improve it. It'd be limited to one floor of your house, and I've seen the video of it. It will basically just, I don't know if it follows a preset. Oh, okay. It's designed to fly on preset paths indoors. So presumably you'll take it around the house or will map it somehow, and it will then just fly around the inside of your house streaming video
What?
of people stealing your stuff.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So I Amazon, they're obviously pushing this sort of wider Alexa ecosystem. So this sort of Ring, as I said, Ring sort of goes against Google's Nest products, so the Nest thermostats and doorbells and all that sort of stuff. So they're obviously trying to push this,
Smart
make
home appliances.
exactly make this sort of ecosystem. And I'll say I've got a, I won't say the name of it. I've got one of them, and a smart plug and stuff, and it works really well. But then they're trying to get to that next level of it won't just be your assistant; they will be controlling your like home basically. But like some of the stuff they're coming out with just goes. I'm a relatively techie person. I said, this seems weird now.
Yeah. And like, can you imagine if like your house did get broken into, right? And this drone like pops up, is flying around your house, like recording, like chasing this man around your house or this woman around your house. And like you just go to the police with it. And you're like, listen, somebody's broken into my house and I've got a really good like 4K quality pan shots of the following the thief around the house.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, what is going on here?
Well, it's like I think it's only in America at the moment, but you can get like Amazon locks on your doors. So when like the Amazon delivery guy comes, the door will unlock and like they will just be able to place your parcel inside.
Oh, I
And
don't
I was
like
thinking,
that.
this is not normal.
I feel like Black Mirror should just do a whole episode on Amazon, just like the
Yeah.
dystopian Amazon future.
It's very Black Mirror.
That's
like I said,
terrifying.
I watched the video of it and it is hilarious. Watching this thing.
Is it loud?
Yeah, it's intended to be very loud, presumably to deter people. But if you ever like used a drone or seen a drone, it's like that. It's a loud like quadcopter sort of thing. So,
because God, can you imagine as well, like if you've got one in your house and you come back from like a night out or something by accident, right? And you set that thing off when you come through your front door.
Yeah.
And because you've had a couple of drinks or something, you're not even able to like run after it and grab it. And this thing's just flying around your house at like 15 miles an hour and it just wakes everybody up in the house.
Yeah.
Or like what happens if someone accidentally shuts a door and the path that you've programmed it didn't account for the idea of that door being shut, and then in the middle of the night there's just a giant bang and a quadcopter's just gone through your door.
I don't know. I can't imagine it would be great for pets either.
Yeah,
like cats and dogs at home, it will be.
I was gonna say my cat would hate it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that would be good for is it'd probably get my cat just doing exercise and running around the house a lot, have it doing laps.
Yeah. I've got a line here from this. This is on wired.co.uk. The latest Ring device is built to be noisy on purpose, so if you're home, you can hear it coming. It's just
what?
Like someone sat down and designed this and thought, yeah, people want a camera flying around their house, and they've released the Echo Show, which is like their like Echo device with like the screen on it.
Yeah,
that's now got a the screen on it now swivels on this like camera, so it will like follow your voice, so like it will turn to face you, and it's just so creepy, isn't it?
Yeah. I tell you what, that drone is going to be hilarious for like people that live in shared accommodation,
Yeah, yeah.
or like I'm just thinking now, like halls at uni. Can you imagine if someone plugged that like in the hallway
Mm-hmm.
and that thing's flying around when people are coming in and out the door, or like if you like live in like a flat like complex and there just happens to be one on your floor.
Yeah, it's
But it's also quite scary because it could go the other way too. Do you know what I mean? Can you imagine like if one day every house has one of those? And it's
well,
just like it flies around your house and it comes and lets you know that the kitchen today is actually looking a little bit messy than it usually looks.
I'd like to think that this is some sort of
Do you reckon they're just
some
showing off some kind of like new technology they found, but they're not really thinking, oh, this is going to be something that every home needs?
or any home needs? Like, who is buying this?
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of, well, okay, two things I can think of. Someone quite high up the corporate ladder has decided this would be a good idea, or they're trying to like demonstrate drone capability, which I know they are sort of looking at, and it's something they're trying to get into. But this doesn't seem like the right way at all to go about it.
Because that would be hilarious as well. Imagine just like if I owned a farm or something, that's what I'd do. I'd just buy like thousands of them, just like plug them all into like the back of my garage, and then anybody that comes on my land that shouldn't, just like 1,000 of them, just come up and start like swarming their cars and stuff.
I've just thought of it now, but like maybe they are trying to get more into this business, because I know these sorts of things. A friend of mine, she did some work with like wind turbines, and they used like camera drones to go up and like assess the things so that people don't have to go up there. And I know they use these sorts of things. You know, there's ideas like police and firefighters being able to use them in buildings. So
Yeah.
maybe Amazon is just trying to demonstrate we have the capability for drones to be flying indoors and doing stuff, and it's quite good. So
Yeah.
maybe this is just a stepping stone for them to try and sort of use these drones in that way. But it feels like a line has been crossed, and we're getting into Black Mirror territory.
Well, yeah, totally. And like, especially in like COVID times too, because it could be a real great way to have security on like events. Like, imagine if they have like the future of pubs, are just these drones flying around. And they just check, they face scan you, facial recognition as you're like, as they're flying past, they're like, is he of age? Yes. Has he recently been tested? Yes, he's okay. Okay, cool, he could stay. And then it just flies off.
Fit one of the infrared like thermometers onto it as well, so it can scan your forehead as it goes past. And that, I mean...
Can you imagine just sitting at this table, this little drone just flies over, parks itself on the table. Like there's like a mount on every table so it can kind of like come and land, and it just like turns to you and it's just like in the Alexa voice, it's just like, please leave.
Unless it's also carrying drinks, I'm not interested. That's the
yeah, that'll be the day.
Yeah. Yeah. That was just a fun one that I came across and I thought was a bit weird. So
I was gonna say, that's class. What a crazy thing. But yeah, guys, I think that pretty much finishes it up for episode 4. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you give it a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening on Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts, make sure you hit the follow button, give us a good rating on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. If you have any like episode suggestions or any questions, be sure to hit us up at Infinite Void Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to send us an email for anything else, it is theinfinitevoidpodcast@gmail.com. And then, I know we've got so many socials. And then if you want to get in touch with me, I'm at Jacob E. Carson. And Matty?
I am on Twitter at the Matty JMP.
And yeah, guys, that's it. We will catch you in the Infinite Void next week.